What about Genghis Khan? Like a live travel
Yeah.
one? Where he's like, all right, we took over most of China this
Updated
week.
body count daily.
Yeah. We're up to 3 million square miles. Expanding rapidly.
Ad reads for lime. There's just piles of dead bodies outside the studio.
Are you having trouble keeping track of your property lines? With Simply Safe.
If I could make a Frankenstein of the sexiest bald men in America, I got Russillo's pecs and Kyle's head. He's got a perfectly shaped bald head, and now they're together for the first time on the Green Light Pod.
What's up, Rye?
I got to tell you, Big Cat sent us a video of you the other day to Chris and I was like, God, he looks good. You've been looking good. I don't know what's going on with you.
And you look jacked. I'm just checking you out here in the monitor and studio, and I'm just envious of the deep V. You got some dressage on the necklaces. You're looking swole as well. So
yeah, we'll talk about his chain. We'll talk about his chain in a little bit. That's got a little history. He's like a diamond hunter. He really knows how to go into these diamond shops and shake these people down.
Yeah, it was a long negotiation. I still have no idea. I think I may dress up, just go full mustache with like a bowler on, and then try to sell it to them to see what they say. Like I'm actually thinking about doing this just to see what happens and how bad the transaction ends up being historically.
When the shows when antiquers go and they like barter and they try to get the best like old Coca-Cola sign, you need a show at the Ringer where you go and try to negotiate people down on chains and such. I think it'd be really
like
good.
it. I don't know if I'm the guy. I don't know if that's my demo. I found myself. I didn't watch those shows a lot, but I think it was the American Pickers guys that annoyed me the most. And I think Van Pelt taped an ad with them back when we were doing the radio show. And he goes, "Dude," I taped this ad, and I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What's up with those guys?" And Van Pelt goes, "We wouldn't hang out with them." I was like, that's not shocking, but I always got a little annoyed. Like they'd find some guys, like a mobile oil sign from the 20s, and the guy'd be like $7, and like he knows he's ripping this old guy off.
I want it
in the Heartland. You know what I mean? Like you can't do this to these people. And they made a TV show about these guys driving around in a van, being like, let's lowball all these old people and steal their shit.
Yeah,
and no one felt bad.
The guy's like, I got my foot amputated last year. I don't have the money to pay my medical bills, but things have been all right around here. Okay, $5 for the Exxon sign. Like, fuck, dude, that is exploitative. I never thought about it.
I don't know why. Right? Honestly, I think the show should have been less popular. It'd be like, all right, I lost my arm in WWII, but I was able to, grab these 7 helmets from Normandy. Be like, $2 a piece.
Jeez.
Exactly. Dude, this is the second show at least I've been a part of shitting on. We'll talk about Seinfeld in the mailbag section today because I had a revelation, Ryan. I'll share it with you in a little bit. These Seinfeld fans are out of control. All right, Ryan, I want to talk a little sports before we get to this mailbag. As a background, when we get to the mailbag, I was lost today. I've got a couple of mailbags for Ryan and Kyle. But, like my wheels are spinning. I have like writer's block, podcaster's block. Right? Do you ever get podcaster's block?
I do. Opens are tough because I always wanted to be really good, those opening monologues. And then I'll always remind myself, be like, hey, remember when you had to do like 4 or 5 of these a day for a radio show?
Yeah.
Like you should be able to deliver on a good 10-minute opening for the 3 that you do each week. But there's some mornings you'll wake up and you go, what am I going to say by myself for 10 minutes today?
Well, the problem is, and I've never done the radio thing. I've done it as a guest. And when I go on a show as a guest, I never stress about anything because people are just asking me questions. And you know that imperfection is kind of baked into the whole experience. It's live. But then when you have a podcast, you're like, I want to get all my points in. I want to be perfect. I want to transition well from this thing to the next thing. And I got to say, man, I'm not jerking your chain here. No pun intended. Your monologues are fire. Like you got
strong monologue.
Yeah, you got the best monologue game in the game. So I just wanted to give you that compliment.
That's a scouting report, at least.
Huh?
Yeah, good monologues. A lot of injuries.
A lot of injuries.
Same.
Yeah. All right. So hit us. Did you hit Trent Dill for getting the job at UAB in one of your monologues? He's a buddy of yours. He's come on your show a lot. I enjoy hearing him on the Ryen Russillo show. But now he's the coach at UAB. Did this come out of nowhere? Did you know about this?
I didn't. I mean, I always thought he was going to end up being a GM. So we just talked about this yesterday on the podcast because we have him on every other Monday. And then I was like, is it done? And he goes, no, I'd still like to do some stuff. But, immediately, like the first thing you do when you get a head coaching job is you tell everybody you're recruiting. Because I guess that's what he was already on it this weekend. So, he wins another state title at the end of last week. And then he's recruiting for UAB. I did not know he was taking the gig at UAB. Whenever I talked to him, again, we're buds, but we're not like, we're not checking in with each other constantly like, hey, what's up with your life? But I thought maybe he was going to be a little more geared towards the front office because I know that he had been offered some stuff and I think he'd be really good at it because I just think he's passionate. I think he cares and he's crazy competitive. But he said on the podcast with us yesterday, he goes, I need a whistle. I need to be yelling. I need to be teaching. I think he loves working with younger guys. So he's an on-the-field guy. Like, whatever you have in you, he was not ready to ever go upstairs, even if that was probably a faster path to becoming like a GM and making that kind of money. So he wanted to stay in the South. I think any of us that have traveled anywhere for college football, like when you are going to a UAB, even though it's not a Power 5, if you can nail it there, then he probably eventually, because I just assume everybody wants to keep getting more competitive and figuring out how they would do against the best of the best. Maybe his map in his head, and I'm assuming things here, is he's like, look, if I can do well at UAB here, then who knows, as opposed to maybe taking like a Dion where good for him, but that's one of the toughest.
It's a tough job.
Maybe, yeah. Like if you think about Colorado now, it's probably one of the 5 toughest Power 5 jobs, and I'm probably being nice.
What do you think the other like 3 or 4 are? I mean, and don't mention Virginia.
Vandy's tough.
Yeah.
Vandy's really tough. I mean, you can talk about, okay, cool, you're in the South, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not that you're competing against these other people where it's their religion. When these other big SEC programs want to get rid of a coach, they just call up the guys being like, are you good for $1 million? And they pass the hat and the coach is out of there. And then they hire the next guy. Like, they don't fuck around. Not to say that wouldn't happen, at an Ohio State or some of the other top programs, other spots of the country. I think Stanford's a really challenging job right now because it was pretty clear they were way behind as a university on understanding the transfer portal. And I think Shaw even alluded to that a little bit, being like, hey, if we're going to do this right now, like this transfer portal stuff, man, like it's changed it. You need a GM, for a college program of keeping on top of everything and evaluating the next guys and however the game works of hitting at a dude who's already at another school. I know that's sort of the unwritten rule. You're not supposed to be doing that, but,
I wonder if Trent's bringing Louis luggage to Birmingham.
He's probably coached some of those guys.
Yeah, no. The Stanford job, I think Bronco Mendenhall is in the conversation for that job. And I think Bronco did a really nice job here. It's not an easy job in Charlottesville. And he did a good job, and he bumped his head on the ceiling here a little bit and discovered, I think, some of the challenges and got a little burnt out. But, he would be a good candidate out there. You want somebody who's not your typical college head coach. I think he's a little bit different. He could hang there. And the thing about Stanford that sucks for everybody that takes the job from here on out is they caught lightning in a bottle 2 coaches in a row. Like Harbaugh was awesome, and then Shaw was great too. So they made it look easier than it is. They got to embrace the NIL stuff. They have to embrace the transfer portal if they want to be competitive. Okay, Rye, how about the Heisman stuff? People are making a big deal about the Blake Corum omission in New York. Are you as outraged as everybody else? Does it even matter? I mean, he's not going to win the award.
Yeah, this is always kind of a funny exercise, especially when we do this with MVPs for the NBA. It's like, hey, this guy needs to be in the conversation. You're like, why? So I need to make sure I mention somebody who's definitely not winning. Okay, cool. Like, great year from this guy. Running backs are screwed now. There's no more important position, right? I think we all agree on that. So it's just tough when a quarterback puts up the numbers that they put up now. Like, do you know what you would have to do at running back to win that thing?
I'll tell you.
We grew up, right?
It's Derrick Henry in 2015. He ran for over 2,000 yards. Like, that's what it takes. And then Ingram in 09.
And then he ran for 2,000 in the NFL, and he didn't win the MVP.
Right, exactly. So you learn the lesson at both levels. But, like,
Fucked up.
yeah, it's kind of fucked up. But, like, yeah, it was 2015. I think he had 2,200 yards and in 2015 and beat out McCaffrey and Watson. So he had to beat out, like, great players to win that, but he needed over 2,000 yards. And then Ingram in 2009, interestingly, Rye, it was Ingram who beat out Gerhardt. Gerhardt was the runner-up, dude.
Totally.
Gerhardt had like 1,200 yards on an 8-5 team or whatever it was, like 7-5 team.
The White Rhino.
Yeah, the White Rhino,
Jeez.
which I think helped him get more votes. But yeah, like, yeah, to your point, you're not going to win this award if you're a running back, chances are. It's been 18 out of the last 20 or whatever it is, quarterback.
No, and I really think USC is like 500 without Caleb Williams.
I agree.
Okay, and I don't look at the Pac-12 championship game and go, okay, now my vote for Caleb Williams is going somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how that happens. Did you watch what happened and how hurt he was? I mean, it just sucks, that slide to the sideline of like all the things that could have gone different if he had just veered out and for him to get hurt like that. And he was hurting the rest of the way. SC was not a great football team. The defense wasn't very good. They live and died with takeaways. They were great. You know, usually that stuff, you know, it's a tough thing to bank on. Like, oh, we're just going to be in the positive on takeaways for years. Like, not really. It's, you know, fumble recoveries are luck. Tipped passes on interception, a lot of that stuff is luck. And SC was really lucky with that because the defense had moments where they couldn't stop anybody. And I don't know. I mean, look, without Caleb, they're probably 6-6.
Right. Yeah. No, it's impressive what he was able to hide there a little bit. Even with all the talent infusion they had, like through the portal, they still wouldn't have been the team they were without him. And I kind of wonder if the MVP is the same way in the NFL now. It's like it's based on more because of the media and the way we talk about things like every day. And like RG3 has a new, like, these are my top 3 MVP candidates, like on Tuesday and then on Thursday. And then, you know, like,
it changes from Tuesday to Thursday.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I mean. I'm exaggerating. I'm making the point that like we parse it too much. And you know, it used to be with the MVP. I think at the end of the year, you're just like, okay, where are the numbers? Let's look at the team. Let's watch the tape. But now it's like, hey, this guy played bad this game.
There's storylines every week. There's
he had a moment
to the story.
Yeah, it's like you have a Heisman moment here. You have an MVP moment here. So it's interesting.
It's like Joe Burrow, you know, going and outplaying Patrick Mahomes this past week. A lot of people are going to say, well, hold on a second. Patrick Mahomes isn't the top MVP candidate.
Yeah.
I'd love to know who you have as your top 3 for MVP in the NFL right now.
I'm not off of Josh Allen. You know, that's kind of like, I make this joke about quarterbacks. It's like, other than the 5 or 6 best ones and then the worst 5 or 6, the rest of them, like, depending on how you feel, you'll be right. Just give it a week. You know, like, you can go, this guy stinks, and then he can have a good game, and then he's probably going to have a bad game. You'd be like, see, I was right. I mean, it's so when the back and forth of the week to week, which is what we do. I mean, we talk about all this stuff for a living. As somebody had to do a radio show, we talk about college football and be like, you know what's not a great topic is college football will figure itself out. Like, that doesn't work. You can't just sit there and go, week 2, hey, who do you think can win a title? Get back to me in December.
Yes.
All right, well, what are you doing for the 15 hours this week?
Yes.
So we get why we do it, even if it feels like, you know, Josh Allen has the red zone issues, you know, the Jets game, the Vikings game, and you're thinking, okay, well, I can't, like, you're not eliminated. You may fall behind guys and you're not eliminated because I think he means so much to what is still what I think is the best team in the NFL. So that's part of it. It took me longer than it should have, but what Jalen Hurts has become is so fucking impressive, man. Because, like, I might be different as an NFL voice because I watched so much college. So when you watched a lot of Jalen in college, it was a lot of one read and I'm out of here, you know? And I don't like quarterbacks that kind of default to run. Because to me, like, when young guys come in and everybody gets excited, be like, oh, look how much this guy's running around. It's like, yeah, that's because he has no idea what else is going on. He's like, well, this will work.
Just
I'll get a few
on
yards here.
Yeah.
But that's not like a long-term solution to it. And what Hurts has become now is somebody that'll make challenging throws. He trusts his receivers, and the run for him is just this additive where I felt like it was a default. That stuff at the goal line, like what are you supposed to do when it's like, okay, Hurts can keep it, he can inside handoff, there's a guy streaking across the back of the end zone, and then Devontae Smith ends up just standing in front of him because he's wide open because there's all this other eye stuff going on. So I think Jalen is definitely in that conversation. It's tough to write off Mahomes. I think Burrow's part of it too. I'd love to pick a non-quarterback one year, but it's just hard to make the argument.
Yeah, I mean, it is a quarterback award. I mean, we say MVP and we talk about who adds the most value to a team, and you got to say it's the quarterback. I mean,
it's impossible. The way the award
at
is
the highest
named,
level, at least.
I mean, like it's basically
there's the Derrick
EPA.
Henry argument, which makes sense to me, and I consider him to be the MVP for their team, but for the other 31 teams, it's usually the quarterback.
Well, it's basically like trying to assign EPA to a player on a team, right? Like it's like, hey, and by definition, what he mentioned with Jalen strengthens his case a great deal because, like, you are legitimately adding value in the low red, a very valuable part of the football field for an offense, and that is a value you don't have with other quarterbacks. So, like, yeah, you're evaluating Jalen Hurts on how he throws the deep ball. You know, the way he goes through his progressions, you know, how he scrambles, how hard he is to sack, his leadership, the whole thing. Like, he checks all those boxes. But then when you get in the red zone, he adds something that Joe Burrow absolutely can't, and Patrick Mahomes can't even.
Joe Burrow flashes a little bit sometimes. He gets a little sexy with the legs, but he's not a threat in the same way that Jalen
exactly.
is. Nowhere
schematically, it dictates you can do all these things. So my top three right now are, you know, it's Mahomes, it's Joe Burrow, and it's Jalen Hurts. Not in that order. Just like, again, I hate to do this to Ryan, but like check back with me in 5 weeks. You know, like, Allen's right on the outside of that, even as bad as he's played.
Yeah, because we're one or two vintage Josh Allen games away where we're like, God, he's just
his Heisman moments. His Heisman moments.
He's got to have his.
So you know, I think the thing that people don't think about with Buffalo is the line between them being an offense where you're like, and yeah, they're high powered is Stephon Diggs. You know, like outside of the quarterback. So the offensive line's not great. The run game's been good. Cromer's helped. Cook had a great week last week, the whole thing. Gabe Davis is a number 2, but I think we got a little bit inflated on his value
here recently
because of that playoff game last year. You know, Knox is a nice piece, but it really is Josh Allen doing a lot of shit there. So, yeah, interesting conversation. Check back with me in 5 weeks.
Can I ask Kyle this?
Yeah.
I felt at one point watching Micah Parsons destroy everybody's plan that I go, like, I was almost motivated, and I brought it up on the pod, I don't know, a few weeks ago, where I go, like, why can't he do this? If you're this game-wrecking edge guy, like, what is that like from your perspective, Kyle, of how much somebody like that changes? Is it fair? Is it worth bringing him up, or is that sort of a social media creation?
No, I mean, a guy like Micah Parsons, we call him, you know, game wreckers, game plan ruiners, and not only do they ruin your game plan, but you still have to take the entirety of the week to put points of emphasis within the install on, hey, we have to know. I'm just going to use 99 as a number because Aaron Donald, obviously. We have to know where 99 is. You know what I'm saying? We have to know where he is at all times. And every single one of our plays is schemed up as such where somebody's going to be hitting him below the legs. Somebody's going to be chipping him on the way out. We have to keep eyeballs on him when he covers. And, you know, in the naked game, a guy like Micah can eliminate naked from your game plan.
Yeah, you can.
Like,
we're not booting out.
Can't boot. We might boot left, and we might have to go check polar, which a lot of times is opposite. Polar opposites. Check, polar. Now we're naked the other way. Everybody knows because of the alignment of where Micah
but, yeah,
is.
You might
That's
be on
what Dan Quinn gets to deal with every week. He has to fucking, like, he's got a special operator on his team.
And you might be on, it's easy to check, but you might have a look to one side of the field. You might be on a hash. You might be, you know, so it does definitely affect the way. If a player takes meeting time up, that is value.
And a lot of times we say there's two trains of thought here. One of which is we're going to see how bad Michael wants to play football, and we're going to run everything at him. We're going to give him everything except the kitchen sink. We're going to throw at him. And then the other train of thought is what I was alluding to earlier, which is stay away from him, respecting him. And there's adjustments within the game depending on how your initial plan was. But yeah, he's a game wrecker.
Now, or you could do option 3, which Nick Sirianni, who's a fucking genius, my pick for Coach of the Year. Hope that bet cashes. It pays out pretty well. He's like, yeah, let's not block him. Let's just Monday Night Football. That was one of the wildest things that I'd seen was like, hey, we're just going to, and as an edge player, I can tell you that works. Making a guy who respects his keys go through his progression, and that slows him down. And I thought that was a really interesting wrinkle to throw at him, and it'll be interesting to see what they do to him on Christmas.
That raises a really good point. That's a really good point. It makes me think of something that we had to deal with guys like Clay Matthews, and we've dealt with TJ Watt and players like that. The spinner look, which is where that defensive end comes off the ball and he moves over the A gap, B gap. He can be in either of those gaps at the snap of the ball. They're
floating. Yeah,
they're
he's
playing
a floater.
with you. You saw with Anthony Barr in Minnesota a lot, the freedom to move around. And the other players on the interior, now the onus is on them to then be the guy distinguishing read for the keep or the give. And he has more freedom within that. I'm excited to see how Dan Quinn implements that in the game against the Eagles.
All right, so it's time. I'm so tired of talking about football, guys. We did a really good job there. Hopefully people that came for analysis, their thirst
awesome.
is quenched. Now we got to do a mailbag. Now we got to fuck around. And I'll start here. We got a little bit of everybody here, but I'll start with this one. Okay, this is a Mike White moment, right? You got people coming to the game in Mighty Ducks jerseys. They got Mike White T-shirts. Fans love Mike White. Mike White is popular right now. We know it's probably not forever. Could be. He could be Kurt Warner. He could be 6'5" Kurt Warner with a fade. But chances are, the world moves on at some point. What are your favorite athlete moments? And I'll give you mine as somebody that owned a moment, but then the world kept on moving. For me, it was Jeremy Lin. It was Linsanity. I'll never forget that. I'm a Knicks fan. I had a Linsanity cut-off T-shirt. I'm down in the Caribbean. I'm watching at a beach bar with Meg, and he just owned that moment. It was crazy. You knew he wasn't the answer, and the Knicks weren't that good, but it was fun to watch.
He was entertainment for sure.
Yeah, and the world moved on, and
he had that and one kind of swag about him too.
Then he grew dreadlocks, and
somebody got mad at him.
Yeah, somebody got mad at him, and
he was
went
like,
to
"What's
Brooklyn."
that tattoo on your arm?"
Yeah, but in that moment, Jeremy Lin was the fucking man. So who is your Jeremy Lin?
Insanity.
Another part of the Jeremy Lin story was when he went down to play the Heat after it had been going off for a little while. LeBron and Wade were fighting over the chance to defend him. They wanted to just destroy him. It was very weird. It was like, hey, we don't even care if we win. We want to humiliate you and play the hardest defense in a regular season.
Is that like Tony
game you've ever
Kukoc
seen.
as well? Is that what they did?
Yeah,
Tony
Tony Kukoc. They wanted to get his ass.
They jumped him into the gang.
Hey, now. So
You guys ever been jumped in?
Yeah, to the
year.
NFL, it took 8 years.
Yeah, still.
I was in St. Louis. No, but honestly, if LeBron was on the pod, we know this wouldn't be his answer. It wouldn't be Jeremy Lin. Kyle, do you have one?
I have one, Ryan. You can think of one while I'm saying this, but I don't remember the exact year, but Peyton Hillis was on the cover
exactly right.
of Madden.
That's exactly right.
And, the drills and the training was probably a lot of fun in that game, and it was probably a great year for Peyton. And then I think he kind of faded into obscurity as it pertains to elite status in the NFL.
Man, he really did own that moment.
He had the cover of Madden.
He was just jacked.
Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Hillis.
He was just jacked, Liver King looking ass running back, and he ended up on the cover of Madden. If you go back through, ask a 21-year-old, put all the Madden covers in front of him, 2000 to 2022. Ask how many of those 21-year-olds could name who that guy in the Browns uniform is. 3 out of 100?
Yeah, I don't think it's an anomaly, right? There's been nobody else that's really
flashed for you. No, running backs have had little moments, but not white guys on the juice.
Covers, as Madden covers goes, that's
right.
the most.
That's an anomaly.
That's the rogue wave.
In addition to that story, I was at ESPN, and back then there was a TV show that had a deal with EA. ESPN had really good relationship with EA Sports, and they would do the Madden release cover for this TV show. And so I'm in Connecticut, getting my day started, and they're like, Cowherd may have had a heart attack. Can you cover for him today?
What?
I'm like, wait, what? They're like, and seriously, his show's about to start in 35 minutes. And I'm getting out of the shower, and I go, okay, whatever. Throw on whatever I can throw on. I can get to ESPN in 25 minutes from my house. I walk in, and I do a live 3-hour show with No idea that I was doing it. Okay. And then on top of that, his TV show, they were like, today's the Madden release party cover deal. So you're going to do that TV show too, because Cowherd's out. And he had chest palpitations. He was fine. But like people were freaking out. Like, did Cowherd die today?
I didn't know this about Cowherd.
The other part of that was that with Peyton, it was Mike Vick. And it's not that hard to figure out, but the other co-host did not want to engage with Mike Vick the entire show because he had just gotten out. And so the producers were like, you're going to be Mike Vick's best friend all day, and you're going to do the show, and you're also going to shield how odd this is that the other host wants nothing to do with Vick the whole time. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. So we're taping the show. It's not even live. So whatever the show was, if it was an hour, we were probably hanging out for like 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so it's just me and Vic. And while Peyton Hillis is over here just sweating, super intense. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what's been going on, man? How you been? And to Vic's credit, he was as cool. I mean, again,
and he's been on your show too.
Cool as a cucumber.
And he's been on your show too. Right, hadn't he?
Yeah,
recently? Mike's
he's been on with me a couple times.
Mike's cool. I mean, obviously,
despite,
he did some bad stuff, but he's always been cool, especially as a Hokie. I mean, I run into him. He's all right, man. Okay, yeah. How about Tua? I'm just joking. Just kidding. Just taking the temperature in the room. Just taking the temperature in the room.
I thought Tua was going to be great. That's why I was so frustrated after week 1. So
yeah, okay.
We'll see how it goes.
Here's another one. Marry, fuck, kill. Sorry, Kyle. You can stay out of this if you want. But, he's like a professional.
Maybe
now.
I'll play.
Okay, we'll see. Somebody sent this in, Ryan, because you were posing with Roger Clemens. You know that picture, you and Roger Clemens?
Yeah. We're at a supplement store.
Rocket.
Supplement store.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I think you did.
No, I'm like real. It was a rough part outside of Boston. He had a relationship with this guy that owned a supplement store, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But like weight belts and everything, And so there was these day guys hammered, just wasted across the street. And they saw Clemens. They're like, fuck you, Clemens. Fuck you, dude. You fucking suck, Roger. Fuck you. And he's like, hey, guys, what's up, man? Hey, all right. You have it. Like he completely destroyed him with positive vibes back their way. It was one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. Like Clemens is getting worked by these drunk day drinkers across the street because people know Clemens is going to be, because when he was in Boston, he had a relationship with this guy. And Clemens completely disarms him by being like, what's up, guys?
I see you
over there.
I did not expect that out of Roger Clemens.
I can only picture Roger Clemens walking around in a baseball uniform.
So it sounds like Ryan's going to marry Roger Clemens, but let me give you the other two, Bonds and McGuire.
Ooh.
I love to me, the 86 Red Sox season, Clemens is 14-0, starts for the American League. I kept score of the All-Star game.
Oh boy.
Like I watched it on TV and kept score of it. I think Lou Whitaker went deep in that one.
Pretty young to be doing that.
Yep. There's little signs there where you're like, oh,
this guy's going to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mary
Clemens, yeah.
Mary Clemens.
Mary Clemens.
Okay.
Fuck him.
I'm marrying McGuire, dude. I think he's probably a cool guy. Is he cool?
I had plans to kill Mark McGuire.
Oh, I'm killing Roger Clemens. Conversely, and you're gonna fuck Barry Bonds, man.
You have to.
Yeah, it's just.
Yep.
Pittsburgh Barry Bonds.
Ooh, I don't know. See, here's where we defer. I want Balco Bonds.
I thought you weren't playing. This is good.
I want Balco Bonds.
Balco Bonds is good.
He's got to be in uniform with the eye black.
Yeah.
And,
just parking balls out into the ocean.
Bring a kayak.
Seinfeld fans have come together to. We have a TikTok page here at Greenlight, so go follow that if you're on TikTok. I don't check it but once a month, and I went in the other day and they had posted my Seinfeld tape on loop there, and it has like 700 comments, and it's all white guys in their 30s and 40s telling me I'm not smart enough to get the jokes. That's the problem. That's why I'm not laughing at Seinfeld. So I'd like to say this: you guys are the fucking worst, because I'm plenty smart enough. And those jokes just aren't that funny.
It's like Rick and Morty fans. I don't know if you know Rick and Morty, Ryan, but it's like a really it's like a really highbrow cartoon.
It's awesome,
and it's a smart guy show. I guess there's a lot of smart references like quantum physics and shit in there. But people like to make fun of the average casual Rick and Morty fan.
So there's a Rick and Morty hive.
It's like you don't get Rick and Morty. You're too stupid.
I didn't know that, and we're easy targets. But I was going to ask, what's the worst fan base? Give me some of the worst fan bases of all time. It could be sports. It could be popular culture. And Ryan, do you think I'm not smart enough to get the jokes?
No, I just don't know that the pace of Seinfeld. The biggest mistake, and when you told me you didn't really get it, is you started with season 1. Season 1 is molasses uphill in the wintertime. Okay, It just goes too slow. They haven't edited out kind of the way they want the show to work. Shows kind of grow, and that one grew to a point where the beats were a lot faster. The jokes were more absurd, but it wasn't about a line, boom, boom, joke, laugh. It was like, think about the John Voight's car episode. To sit around and be like, okay, we want to do an episode where George thinks he buys John Voight's car, but he can't prove it. But then there's a pencil with his teeth marks on it. And then however that happens, Kramer runs into John Voight on the street in New York City and has a bloody nose. So Voight thinks he's a crazy person, and Voight bites his arm. So then they all know that they're going to be going to Tim Watley's party, a dentist, and they're hoping to bring the pencil to match the bite marks on the pencil to the bite mark on Kramer's arm to figure out if, in fact, it's John Voight, the actor's car. Like, to have guys sit around and go, what do you want to do next episode? And that be the product is fucking genius.
But it's funny. Like, okay, so the concepts are funny. It's smartly designed. Okay, like, but it's just the execution of the jokes, the dialogue for me. It's not my thing. It sounds like.
But you started on season 1. Did you jump into any of the other ones?
And then I asked fucking Matt Kingston here about like, hey, which seasons? I went to those seasons. They're fine. It's fine. It's not bad. It's not cringe. It's not awful. The stand-up's not great, but it's where I like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Because it legitimately, to me, sounds like people are having a conversation. Yes, it's a bit theatrical. Yes, it's a bit played up. Yes, they're reading a little bit, but literally, they're fucking ad-libbing. And
it's also 20 years later, though. It's also filmed, like
guilty as charged.
Right, like Barney Miller was a great show. If you watched it now, I don't know how much you're going to laugh.
I think some bad fan bases. It would be soccer. I got kind of made fun of.
It would be soccer
by some soccer some fans. They said I'm a casual. You're an American. You can go dormant for another 4 years until the World Cup comes back. And to that I say, number one, fuck you. Number two, I'm just here to support the USA. If you put anything in red, white, and blue and competed it against the other countries, I would say I'm in. Why am I not on the HD channel? I'm on the standard D channel right now.
Yeah, I don't know about the Vietnam War, but sports, and that's where they get dark joke.
4th of July over here, just pointing out the zag to rooting for American soccer.
No, but it is true. There are certain things like soccer is a very safe thing to all be patriotic about. Like we're all these days, like the patriotism is loaded, right? You see an American flags.
Right, but my point is, can we all admit it's cool to root for your home country?
Hell yes, that's the thing.
And not have to do a qualifier. Like I saw this guy. Granted, it might have been the Atlantic, who was like, the whole concept of rooting for your nation is outdated anyway.
Come on.
Is it possible to even get to this point? And he had to, but like everything is like. When there's a guy from your hometown that's a professional athlete, everyone rallies around that and takes an interest in it. They think it's great because it's like, hey, he was one of us.
Your region.
And you expand it. You just expand it out to the point of like, it's not some intimidating form of nationalism. It's simply like, do you want to be the guy who has a fucking Iran jersey? What was that word? What was that country? Iran, like, you know what I mean? Like that one buddy of yours that goes, I actually root for English. The English.
It's like
nobody wants to be that. And
people always want to unite the world, and it's like the easiest way to do that. Let's unite the country first, and this is a simple way to do it. It's like put a team out there, put them all in the same thing with our flag on it, and people are going to root for it.
Well, and even the guy, the way soccer is, and soccer fan bases, like they're more intellectual and like they have to be, because I'm not smart enough to get it. I mean, fucking, but like it's a safe thing to be patriotic about. I just think it occupies a really interesting niche where, like, on Twitter, in 2022, a bunch of people can be patriotic for a day
Yeah.
and actually not feel weird about it because it's not loaded.
Not feel alt-right.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the same thing with the women's national team. It's the same thing with basketball when we go to the Olympics and that sort of thing, and the Olympics and that sort of thing. But soccer, for some reason, everybody just parks it and watches. And I agree with you. Soccer fans are tough. It's like,
the
hockey.
worst thing to happen in soccer.
Huh?
Soccer would grow if it weren't for soccer fans.
Yeah, I think also,
Amen.
if not for the NIL money now, there's no chance that nickel that's never going to see the field at an SEC school is going to pick up some Diodoras. I mean, like now the fact of the matter is you can make money in college. So there's no way our best athletes are going to play soccer at any point. I want to throw Lakers fans in the mix.
Yes. Lakers.
I think the Kobe fans are like another level. Like the Kobe Laker fan can be even tougher than the Laker fan.
Climate change activists.
Okay.
They ruin art.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Dolphins fans ruin the Dolphins.
Base?
It's like Dolphins fans ruin the Dolphins. Climate change, very real. Okay, we got to do something about it.
We get it.
But the potato on Van Gogh.
That Monet is beautiful.
Well, also, like, you really think anybody's going to do anything differently now?
That poor security guard sitting there, he knows he's gonna get fired. There's syrup on the Monet.
No, you think the BP guy's like, oh man, I was a big fan of Rembrandt. I'm probably gonna stop ruining the planet. Okay, so yeah, fan bases, yeah.
We like the team they root for. We just don't like their message board.
Exactly. Hey, and listen. If you ride around your city and you see, the more you see those flags that go in the windows when you roll up and they put the flags like Laker, Cowboy flag, the more flags there are of that team, the worse the fan base is to deal with. I'm telling you, it's a canary in the coal mine a little bit.
We had 4 when you played at UVA.
Yeah, we had a couple.
Our Tahoe.
Right, but you don't see many Virginia ones, so we're not that bad. Okay. These are the history ones for Ryan. Historical figures that would have the best podcast.
Great question. El Duce comes to mind. Mussolini, media background, was very to the point. Definitely was like, hey, this is how I feel. Like uncompromising. If he were on First Take, he would never give in. He would submit nothing. You think you'd have him you think if you have him in a corner, he'd just be like, nope, you're wrong.
Mad Dog, a translator, and Mussolini.
Yeah. Guys would be like, I don't agree with his points, but he's very convincing. There's actually a right answer. There's one right answer, and it's Alexander Hamilton. I mean, this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, he could do everything. His story's incredible. He's hanging out at St. Kitts. His mother is a woman of ill repute, which just means they weren't wed perfectly when they had the kids. And back then, if the kids were out of wedlock, the schools were like, sorry, we're not going to teach you.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Be like, my parents had something dicey going on. Hey, you're going to be dumb the rest of your life. Here's a shovel. So Hamilton, and then his mom and him, I think they both have the yellow fever at the same time. And she dies in a bed next to him as they're both going through this awful sickness. So now he's orphaned. And all the stuff that she had, the first husband who was out of the mix was like, I get to keep all the stuff. But they had a library of books. I think it was 34 books. And the dad took those to sell them. And then a family friend bought the books back and gave back to Hamilton. So self-taught. And then he ends up at some merchant's office. And they're like, this guy's actually a genius. He's really good with a quill. So let's get him over to New York. We're going to teach him up.
Didn't they raise money for him? Didn't they?
Yeah. There you go, Kyle.
Guys. You learned
Kyle.
His town was like, we need to put him on scholarship.
So they protected him.
We need to get this guy on a schooner north. Granted, probably not a schooner for that kind of trip back then. But anyway, he's in the city for a very short amount of time, and now he's in with George Washington. He sets up banking. He's a fucking hothead. He's challenging everybody to duels left and right. That was his ultimate demise, although there's some historical debate over whether or not he actually thought he was engaging in the duel with Burr.
We all have our vices, Ryan.
Right. But I mean, think about that. He's on top of finance. He's on top of politics. He's on top of international stuff.
Yeah.
He's on it. Military tactic. There's no topic that he couldn't talk about. And he's constantly calling people out.
All these
That's
overcoming
that's a podcast,
podcasts, yeah, he would. He'd be a hot take artist too. But all these overcoming podcasts, where it's just basically like, man, all this stuff happened to me, and like all these mindset podcasts, he would blow those things out of the water. All the things he's been through. That's crazy. I didn't know that about Alexander
Captain
Hamilton.
James Cook. Captain James Cook, man. Been everywhere.
What kind of ad reads would he have
with a ship?
All right. So what about
Genghis Khan? Like a live travel
Yeah.
one? Where he's like, all right, we took over most of China.
Updated body count daily.
Yeah. We're up to 3 million square miles. Expanding rapidly.
ad reads for Lime? There's just piles of dead bodies outside his studio.
Lime.
Are you having trouble keeping track of your property lines? With Simply Safe.
I got a question for him. So, if you were to be in the World's Strongest Man competition, which event would you feel most confident in?
Pull-ups, probably.
Do they do pull-ups at the World's Strongest Man competition?
I don't know.
Like Atlas Stones. You can either do the Atlas Stones, you can stand in the car and carry it.
Just to back up here, yesterday I was squatting and I was using the kabuki bar, and I don't know if that was the problem, but my Apple Watch called 911 twice while I was doing it. And they called me back. So I'm sitting there with the bar over me, and my wrist is vibrating like crazy, and I'm going, what is going on? The watch, I think, thought I was under so much strain that it called 911.
Damn, dude.
So, right.
Fire engines pulling up the Equinox. It's just Ryen
Right, so they're
Russillo.
like, what's going on here?
Keg
And
toss.
I'm like,
You could toss a
leg
keg.
keg.
You're jacked. Those arms.
I could do that. But aren't they full? You know what I always thought was a little
Aren't they
overrated
full?
was hauling the truck.
Yeah, I could do that.
I always felt like whenever I see videos of some asshole on Instagram with like a car behind him and then he's walking, he's like, look at me. You're like, if the brakes aren't on, eventually the thing's going to move.
It's called momentum.
I always felt,
Yes.
yeah. So I wouldn't do it fast as the other guys, the rope pull with the truck and the whole thing. But I'd like to think if there's enough lube on those discs, maybe get it moving a little bit.
I got a quick one for you because I know you got to go. Historical figures, another history question for Ryan. Give us our historical comps. Kyle, myself, and your friend Macon.
Kyle's Patton.
Kingston, former teachers, like,
Okay.
I could see
George S.
I could see Chris. There's this thing on if you read the book Estonia,
Estonia.
Hadn't read
it's
it yet.
unbelievable. Pacific Northwest, this trading post, furs are like, the markup on furs is insane. Like if you're getting them for $1 a fur in the States, you're charging China like 100, 800. I forget what the markup was. It was nuts. The fur was like FTX there for a little while. And so there was this guy from Western Mass who just decided to like leave. And he ended up on some expedition out of St. Louis. So Chris didn't like Mass, did go to St. Louis. Timelines are reversed.
Yeah.
And then he hooked up with these trappers who got like wiped out by the Blackfeet, like worked, except the one guy who was like 18 at the time. And he walked around in the woods by himself for like 2 years until another expedition found him. And they were like, this guy
Has seen
is
some
fucking, he's seen some shit.
So Kyle's
Kinda like-
Patton, I'm a guy wandering
You're
around the
a
Pacific
feral
Northwest.
trapper.
I just feel like
That's good.
Chris has a moment where he just goes, I've had it, and starts walking into the woods mechanical
Every
style.
day. Every day.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think I know you too well. But the thing is this guy was, like, Chris isn't as crazy as this guy. This guy was so unhinged when they finally found him walking around the woods for like 2 years trying to avoid being killed that he was so crazy his last name became a term for crazy. Okay, the last one.
Macon
I
definitely
think-
is somebody with a wig and white
No, I think it's Aaron
makeup.
Burr.
Aaron
I think it's Aaron Burr
Aaron Burr.
because the part about the Aaron Burr story that's forgotten at post Hamilton is that he just decided, it's crazy. Like somebody will send out a bad tweet now as a political figure, or maybe somebody says something they should have said. Aaron Burr was like, fuck this place. Let's just start a new country with the Western states. Let's get a militia together, invade Louisiana, and just take that over. Who's with me? So I could see Macon just turning on the establishment.
Seceding.
Yeah.
You know
Starting
what?
at the green-ish light pod.
I think he's yeah, right, exactly. I'll never forget the time we were in the car with Stanford Steve drunk, and Macon and I were fighting, and the last thing before I got out of the car to go inside, he goes, and one more thing, I want my name on the podcast.
Sounds like Aaron Burr to me.
And Steve just clutched the wheel and looked straight ahead. He's going to be happy with that Aaron Burr comp. I was expecting somebody totally
He's an
more
all-time asshole.
somebody more effeminate or
Aaron Burr.
prickly, I guess.
He did kill Hamilton.
He killed Hamilton? That makes a lot of sense.
He's an all-time
Look out.
asshole.
All right. Well, okay, Ryan, you gotta get going, but we appreciate the time.
By the way, thanks a lot. Happy holidays to you. Very impressed with Kyle.
He's great.
Thanks, Ryan.
It was good to catch up.
Good to catch up, buddy.
See you, buddy.